Well, good morning. I could see you out there. I know you can do better than that. There's more than two of you. Good morning. All right, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm really delighted to be here. I'd like to first welcome you to the 29th Annual INCOSE Conference. This is a phenomenal organization as you think about the growth, not only of the industry and the area of expertise, but also in terms of the impact and the number of people who are now identifying themselves as systems engineers. I'd also like to add my congratulations to our Best Paper Award recipients this morning, because it's hard to take the time to write papers and submit for conferences, and then it's wonderful for the contribution that it makes, again, to the body of knowledge that we all share and helps us in our translation of interdisciplinary challenges. So it's just great to be here, and I've been looking forward to this event because it definitely attracts brilliant systems engineers who are working on some of the world's most complex problems. I know that at this symposium you're going to meet people who spark new ideas, colleagues who become key contacts, or contemporaries who become close collaborators in the years ahead. And you can see that in the collaborations that are already occurring. All of you have worked very hard to develop your expertise, and you should be very, very proud that our field is shaping the future for nearly every industry. Like many of you, systems engineering has played an important part of my career from the very beginning. I earned a master's degree in mathematics, and I realized that I could understand complex concepts, but then it was sort of, so what? And after earning a master's degree in systems engineering and later going back and getting a PhD in systems engineering, I realized that with my expertise in systems engineering, I could, in fact, change the world. Having been a young African-American girl growing up in New York City in the 60s, no one ever told me that that was the trajectory that I was going to be on. That was not the expectation that had been set. And throughout my career, I relied on a talented team of skilled engineers to be fearless in figuring out how to balance the quest for innovation versus the need to mitigate risk. During my short term as a university president, I recognized that the university is a system of complex systems as well, whose overarching objective was still to foster innovation while mitigating risk. Because I've spent so much time around engineers, I understand the vital work that you do. And you are the source of adaptive and innovative problem solving, which reminds me of a story about 3 accountants and 3 systems engineers. You've heard this one. So they're going to a conference, right? And they all show up at the train station to purchase tickets, and the accountants buy 3 tickets. Not surprising. The systems engineers buy 1 ticket. The accountants look at this and say, I'm not understanding, how does this work? So sure enough, they board the train, the accountants take their seats, the 3 engineers pile into the restroom. The conductor comes by and says, tickets please. He gets to the restroom, knocks on the door, 1 arm comes out, 1 ticket appears, he checks it, moves on. So the accountants see this and say, aha. So sure enough, on the return trip, what happens? The accountants buy 1 ticket, the systems engineers don't buy a ticket at all. So sure enough, everybody piles on the train, the accountants pile into one restroom, the systems engineer pile into another. As soon as the train leaves the stations, one of the engineers pops out, knocks on the restroom and says, ticket please. So this morning, I just want to take a moment and talk about some of the many exciting opportunities for systems engineers. Not all of them involve train rides. The important work that you do is shaping a wide array of industries and helping us to solve a host of extremely complex challenges. Throughout history, humans have always had a desire to use technology to extend their reach, solve problems, and explore the universe. As systems engineers, we accomplish impossible tasks that are helping to solve the most complex global challenges, including leadership. Success requires innovation and effective systems engineering. Many of us often think of systems engineering as a modern concept. We may consider its origins at Bell Labs in the early 40s and its development at places like the RAND Corporation, the Aerospace Corporation, the Department of Defense. But the principles behind a systems approach to solving problems has been refined and improved across the centuries. Over time, we see that the best engineers possess many attributes that are, and there are a few qualities that set them apart. Excellent systems engineers have an insatiable curiosity about how the world works. They possess a creative vision that allows them to see possibilities where others only see problems. They achieve a level of technical excellence that earns them the highest respect from their peers. They have a wide range of interdisciplinary interests that allow them to see problems from many different perspectives, and this enables human progress. I've often thought that a great example of a systems engineer was Leonardo da Vinci, an architect, an inventor, a scientist, a true Renaissance man, and truly a systems engineer. Steve Jobs once described Da Vinci as his hero, saying he saw beauty in both art and engineering, and his ability to combine them was what made him a genius. When I worked at the Aerospace Corporation, we took pride in developing systems and technologies that were decades ahead of their time, in fact, sometimes on the bleeding edge. But I've always been amazed that Leonardo's ideas and designs were hundreds of years ahead of their time. He was one of the world's most prolific inventors, and yet he was more interested in practical ideas than theoretical concepts. Starting around 1490, he began a systemic study of the mechanics of birds in flight, hoping to help humans achieve their aspirations of soaring across the sky. He filled his notebooks with more than 500 drawings and 35,000 words dedicated to the dynamics of flight. More than 500 years after Leonardo made those sketches, a British television show decided to see if his ideas really worked. Using only materials that would have been available during Leonardo's lifetime, they built a prototype that made it into the air. More than 400 years before the Wright brothers achieved liftoff at Kitty Hawk, Leonardo used his knowledge to uncover the principles behind the dream of flight. Remember, his design didn't even have the benefit of an engine. So where do the great visionaries throughout history get their ideas? In nearly every case, the most creative people in any field have a wide variety of interdisciplinary interests. By comparison, in our modern world, we live in an age of increasing specialization. During various parts of his life, Leonardo studied a broad array of different disciplines. For his time, he was well-versed in a vast universe of influences ranging from the arts to the sciences. He studied engineering, optics, mechanics, anatomy, physiology, and descriptive geometry. He also understood the artistic tools of color, form, balance, and perspective. Because his mind could draw on information from so many different fields, he was able to imagine visionary ideas that were far ahead of his time. As modern systems engineers, we live in a world that is much more complex than even Leonardo da Vinci could have envisioned. New knowledge is being generated at an extraordinary rate. Data is being collected and processed at an incredible pace. Our ability to store and analyze information continues to grow day by day. Entire industries can be disrupted by a single innovation. That's why the work you do as systems engineers is more important than ever before. You're living at a time when you have access to better tools and technologies than at any point in human history. You have the ability to use your knowledge and experience to improve the quality of life for people around the world. We need systems engineers because you understand complexity. We need people who can view challenges from new angles. We need people who can see problems from new perspectives. And we need those who see our greatest challenges as our biggest opportunities. In nearly every industry, systems engineers have the technologies and the opportunity to drive innovation in ways that would have seemed impossible only decades ago. I'd like to briefly touch upon 6 areas where systems engineers can have the greatest global impact in the years ahead. transportation, artificial intelligence, communications, environmental social responsibility, exploration and discovery, and lastly, leadership. While Leonardo lived in an era without today's transportation conveniences, his notebooks were filled with sketches that predicted the technologies of the future. Long before they became reality, he drew sketches of the parachute, the tank, the airplane, the helicopter, the submarine, and the steam engine. He even imagined a self-propelled wagon, which looked like an early version of the car. In 2004, the Institute Museum of the History of Science in Florence, Italy, used digital modeling to bring Leonardo's design to life. While the wagon only moved forward, researchers proved that Da Vinci's ideas were not only sound, but that they were centuries ahead of their time. In that same spirit, today's talented systems engineers are igniting a major revolution in the field of transportation. It was engineers who envisioned GPS systems that would ensure that we never, never have to stop and ask for directions again. It was engineers who invented subways and high-speed trains that helped us travel faster from place to place. It was engineers who imagined advanced electronics that have made our cars, trucks, and airplanes operate with more autonomy. It was engineers who designed flight management systems to improve navigation as well as computer models to enhance the efficiency of major airport hubs around the world. We see evidence for this transportation revolution in ride-sharing companies like Uber and Lyft, and now Bird and Lime. It was just over a decade ago that smartphones first offered third-party apps allowing customers to order a ride with a push of a button. That one innovation has increased the transportation options for individuals and altered traffic patterns of large cities. In the future, we'll see the need for systems engineers who can help us find ways to improve travel efficiency and to create new ways for traffic to flow through the heart of the world's growing cities while mitigating the environmental impacts. Another idea gaining ground is self-driving cars. Companies like Uber, Tesla, Waymo, and others are engaged in a race to design autonomous cars that drive as well as humans. Now, some might say that they drive better than humans, but that's a topic for a different conference. Of course, designing a safe, driverless vehicle is incredibly complex. To do this, brilliant engineers have pushed the boundaries of innovation, leading to advances in radar, LiDAR, high-resolution cameras, and ultrasonic sensors that use sound waves. While safe self-driving cars have the potential to transform transportation for individuals, engineers are innovating new ways to transport cargo. In the U.S., we rely on a massive fleet of trucks to deliver approximately 70% of all our goods. Yet the industry claims it currently needs 60,000 new drivers, with that number expected to reach 100,000 in the next few years. Because the transportation industry plays such a vital role for every business, they turn to engineers to find innovative ways to address these challenges. Several existing companies, as well as a host of new startups, are experimenting with self-driving trucks that have the potential to dramatically disrupt the industry. Leading the way in this new frontier are companies like Tesla, Waymo, Daimler, and Embark. And while self-driving cars have their own engineering challenges, larger trucks compound these problems. Despite the many technical and regulatory challenges that remain, many tech leaders and financiers predict self-driving trucks will become the norm in the next decade. In the future, with so much economic activity resting on the efficiency of the trucking industry, engineers have an amazing opportunity to advance this impressive technology. Anybody here remember the Jetsons? Yeah, that was sort of science fiction at its best. Well, systems engineers are creating new vehicles for our roads and freeways, and they were also imagining new ways to transport cargo by air. The idea of the flying car isn't entirely new. In 1940, Henry Ford made headlines when he said, "Mark my words, a combination airplane and motor car is coming." Well, for us, that day may be arriving quickly. Engineers are already inventing autonomous vehicles that could soon impact the friendly skies above our cities. The end of January, Morgan Stanley published a paper predicting that by 2040, autonomous urban aircraft could become a $1.5 trillion industry. Morgan Stanley's research group said the intersection of many technologies, such as ultra-efficient batteries, autonomous systems, and advanced manufacturing processes, are spurring a flurry of activity in this space. Fleets of unmanned cargo drones are already being researched and tested at Amazon and the Google spinoff called Wing Aviation. Delivery companies like DHL and UPS have been experimenting with package deliveries for several years. And in one experiment, DHL made deliveries to a small island in the North Sea which had no access to cars, aircraft, or even boats. You can imagine how visionary new technologies will open up the world in ways we can't quite envision yet. While these technologies will completely transform the consumer experience, they have even greater potential to deliver medical supplies and respond to natural disasters. In North Carolina, drones are already delivering medical supplies. Companies like UPS, Zipline, and Airbus have been testing the delivery of vaccines to regions around the world. And during Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico, a fleet of drones delivered medicine and other supplies and also provided wireless access to doctors and medical professions. Another area in which systems engineers are making a major impact is artificial intelligence. For many years, the promises of AI seemed like science fiction. Today, thanks to decades of research and discovery, we're finally seeing AI become integrated into complex systems to benefit society. In fact, my grandkids for their entire lives have thought Alexa is a real person, and they routinely ask her things that I would never have thought to ask. Recently, the World Economic Forum described the discipline this way. They wrote, "We stand on the brink of a technological revolution that will fundamentally alter the way we live, work, and the way that we relate to one another. In its scale, scope, and complexity, the transformation will be unlike anything humankind has experienced before." A global survey revealed that business leaders across every industry believe AI will have a greater influence on the world than the internet revolution. About a year ago, Google's CEO said he believes AI will have a more profound effect on humanity than fire or electricity. While those are very bold claims, it's easy to see how artificial intelligence is reshaping nearly every industry. You can have Alexa or Siri read you the news or your emails or help you send a text to your colleagues. In social media, AI is used to identify photos of you and your friends, as well as images and videos that may contain deep fakes. I'm actually grateful to Facebook that they send me messages that remind me of my memories of what I was doing a year ago, because I'm often hard-pressed to remember what I was doing a year ago. In medicine, AI can help physicians retrieve crucial patient information and read medical records and even detect disease. In the financial services industry, hedge funds employ computer models to drive stock trading, and credit card companies use AI to identify suspicious transactions. In the auto and aerospace industries, AI is helping identify mechanical problems before they occur, transforming the way we maintain vehicles and aircraft. In agriculture, advanced technologies are allowing us to identify weeds with greater accuracy, saving money and increasing yields. In the fight against famine, AI can detect diseases in crops before large populations are impacted. This summer, AI is even being employed by 600 parks around the world to protect more than 1 million plant and animal species that are on the verge of extinction. all of those innovations across every industry are only the infancy of artificial intelligence. Recently, McKinsey & Company produced a report that looked across 19 global industries. The report concluded that advances in AI could have more than a $15 trillion in annual value just for the industries that they studied. While artificial intelligence offers us incredible potential to improve the quality of our lives, the technology also raises many ethical questions. Experts ask if AI will bring us a wonderful new future or a brave new world. As systems engineers, we have to participate in the debate of what is or is not an ethical system. Another challenge that often comes to mind is how AI will affect the workforce. A 2018 report by the World Economic Forum estimates that up to 75 million jobs may be displaced by a shift in the division of labor between humans and machines. However, that same report predicted that more than 133 million jobs could be created in new fields that support labor by humans, machines, and algorithms that are working together. AI also brings up major questions about privacy. Several cities offer safety and security under the watchful eye of advanced surveillance that never tires and never sleeps. During major incidents, those complex systems can help us track down suspects in record time. But those powerful technologies also raise major concerns about our personal privacy. In a world in which we're all constantly connected to our phones and devices, do we ever have a moment when we're not being tracked by some technology? This past May, a Chinese startup captured headlines when it unveiled a facial recognition software that can identify a person from a database of more than 2 billion people in a matter of seconds. Also in May, San Francisco became the first major city in the United States to ban the use of facial recognition software by police and other agencies. While these powerful technologies offer us great opportunity for solving certain challenges, they are also opening up a new debate that is only just beginning. In the future, we'll rely on you as systems engineers to help us understand the advantage and, equally important, the disadvantages of new technologies. We'll need you to be persistent in your voice in helping us decide how we should employ these technologies, how we can improve our security, and how we can also protect our personal privacy. Another area being transformed by systems engineers is the field of communications. If you look across the timeline of history, you can see a number of advancements that have helped humans communicate their ideas. You see this in innovations from early pictograms to alphabets to the printing press, which took information out of the hands of the privileged few and placed it in the hands of the masses. Many believe the printing press was a major factor that ignited social movements like the European Reformation, the Renaissance, and even the Age of Enlightenment. As new ideas swept across Europe and into North America, engineers were inventing new technologies that would forever transform our world. Think of the electricity that lit up our homes and businesses. Think of the railroads that connected the country from coast to coast. Think of the telegraph, the telephone, the radio, the television, and movies with sound for the first time. Today, we may look back at those ideas with amusement, but at the time, they were extraordinary advances that shaped every aspect of our society. In many ways, technologies and networks have been built on the backbone of those earlier inventions. Look at our highways and freeways, and you can see an expansion of the paths across the country by pioneers. Look at the cell phone, Skype, and FaceTime, and you can see the realization of Alexander Graham Bell's dream to hear a human voice from another location. Look at the internet, and you can see Gutenberg's desire to place the freedom of expression in the hands of all people. But it took systems engineers to take these technologies to a new level. It was at Bell Labs, the original home of systems engineering, where the modern cell phone was first proposed. In 1947, a young engineer wrote an 8-page memo. In the memo, he described a mobile phone people could use in their cars. He even included a sketch of cellular phone network that would crisscross the entire nation. It would be 40 years after he submitted his memo that America would have 1 million cell phone subscribers. But the foresight of a single engineer set in motion a whole generation of researchers who helped him to realize his vision. Over time, engineers added their ingenuity to fields like the personal computer, signal processing, satellite technologies, and global positioning systems. Others envisioned new networks that would forever change the way we communicate around the world. This year marks the 50th anniversary of the moment 4 research universities first connected computers over a phone line. ARPANET was the first network to use TCP/IP protocols, and it formed the foundation for the modern internet. This year is also the 30th anniversary of another important moment in communications. In 1989, an engineer and computer scientist wrote a proposal that imagined a new idea called the World Wide Web. When the engineer submitted his prototype, his boss reacted just about as you might expect. He said the researcher's idea was vague but interesting, and now it's pervasive. The former chairman of the Federal Communications Commission wrote, "The telephone, the internet, and broadcasting satellite and cable networks regulated by the FCC may constitute 1/6 of the American economy, but they are relied on by the other 5/6 to do business by every individual in his or her daily life." One area seeing rapid advances is e-commerce. New blockchain technologies will change the way sellers and consumers interact and will help digital transformations and transactions be more efficient and less susceptible to fraud. While this idea is currently only available for digital goods, researchers are in the process of designing passwords that could also be used for physical products. This innovation has the potential to allow buyers and sellers to interact more directly. It also has the potential to unleash a whole new market of microtransactions that could boost our global economy. Advances in communications have also improved our lives in many ways, but like artificial intelligence, they also bring new challenges that affect every aspect of our society. While technological innovations have brought our world closer together, they also have the power to divide us. Think of the immense efforts in cybersecurity needed to protect our private information as well as our personal identities. Think of how the Internet of Things has generated massive amounts of new data, but also opened up new vulnerabilities in our computer networks and infrastructure and made us susceptible in our own homes. Think of the deep fake images and videos that have the potential to change our perception of reality and sway the outcome of elections in nations around the world. In the near future, it will be up to systems engineers to identify and respond to challenges that may very well determine the future of societies around the globe. I have confidence you'll help us to continue to push the envelope of innovation while also addressing the social and ethical questions that come along with every major development. We only need to watch the news or look at our news alerts to see stories from around the world that provide a glimpse into the environmental social responsibility that accompanies the opportunities that are presented by innovation. While the causes of extreme events will continue to be the subject of much debate, systems engineers have a vital role to ensure that we use our resources wisely. Hurricanes here in Florida and in Puerto Rico, tornadoes and flooding across the Midwest, wildfires in California, earthquakes in Peru, Chile, Taiwan, Japan, the Philippines, and California provide unique engineering challenges. In some cases, one natural disaster can lead to even more complex challenges. Last fall, you may have seen images of the massive wildfire that decimated Paradise, California. Experts estimated that cleaning up and rebuilding the town could cost at least $300 million. But then they noticed something unexpected. In trying to fight the fires, the town depressurized the water pipe system. The extreme heat from the fires, combined with the low pressure in the pipes, created a buildup of deadly gases inside the system. The town's entire water supply is now laced with benzene, a chemical that has been linked to cancer. So instead of rebuilding after a major wildfire, the town has now been deemed uninhabitable. So it's important for us to find proactive solutions, or ideally designs that will enable us to mitigate or even avoid the problem. If we don't find ways to combat these challenges, the cost at the local and the global level will become unsustainable. Systems engineers are also helping us to find ways to protect and preserve one of the world's most precious resources, which is water. Recently, the United Nations released a report stating that 90% of all the natural disasters that have occurred over the past 2 decades are related in some way to water. During that time, 6,500 major disasters were caused by storms, floods, droughts, heat waves, or other events connected to an excess or a lack of water. And at the same time, nearly 2 billion people around the world lack access to clean water. While these facts present societies with extraordinary challenges, they also present forward-thinking engineers with the opportunity to dramatically improve the lives of billions of people around our planet. Our increasingly complex environmental challenges have led to increasingly creative ideas for solutions, for example, desalination, solar geoengineering, and converting solar radiation directly into electricity. These are only a few of the ideas that are helping us turn the environmental challenges of today into environmental opportunities in the future. But systems engineering is the key to defining and developing affordable and effective solutions. Being here in Florida, just after the anniversary of Apollo 11, and I appreciated Larry sharing his stories, his personal reflections, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about exploration and discovery. Across every time period and every culture, humans have had a deep desire to learn more about the universe and our place in it. Around 1510, in one of his notebooks, Leonardo Da Vinci wrote a surprising phrase in large letters at the top of the page. Translated from Italian, the note reads, "The sun does not move." To this day, scholars debate what Da Vinci meant by the words dashed across the page. Was it simply a random thought that flashed through a highly curious mind, or was it the sign of a polymath decades ahead of his contemporaries? While we never know the precise thoughts that compelled Da Vinci to record that note, we do know he was considering groundbreaking ideas that would forever change our view of our place in the cosmos. In another note, Da Vinci elaborated by writing, "The Earth is not in the center of the sun's orbit nor the center of the universe." At the time Da Vinci was contemplating these revolutionary ideas, Nicholas Copernicus was just developing his theory that the movements of the sun and the stars are caused by the Earth's rotation. Da Vinci's observations in his notebook were about a century ahead of Galileo's, which allowed us to see distant stars and planets. While new ideas often experience extreme resistance, once they've been introduced into the collective consciousness, they open up new windows of exploration. They spark new questions, new thoughts, and new observations. They quicken the pace of discovery, inspiring new insights and discoveries. We see that same spirit in today's systems engineers who are exploring new worlds of discovery that our ancestors could barely imagine. Well, I want to switch and talk finally about leadership. Having just spent a year as interim president, one of the things that I learned immediately is that running a large university requires systems engineering. And it was the things that I learned in being disciplined as an engineer that I think helped me most during that time. But let me just share one quick story. There were 4 people on a plane a single-engine plane, and they were out for what was supposed to be just a short 3-hour plane ride. And about halfway through, the four of them, the pilot, a priest, a famous engineer, and a Girl Scout, were flying, and the pilot comes back and says, "I got bad news. Our engine is about to fail, and we're going to crash. But I've got a wife and 3 kids, so I'm going to grab a parachute, and unfortunately there are only 3 on board, but I got to live." And he takes his parachute, jumps out. The famous engineer says, "I'm famous, I'm smart, I need to live." Grabs a harness, wraps himself up in it, jumps out the plane. The priest turns to the Girl Scout and says, "My dear, I've lived a long life. You're young, you have your life ahead of you. You take the last parachute." And the Girl Scout looks at the priest and says, "Father, don't worry about it. The famous guy who's so smart jumped out with my backpack, so there's still 2 parachutes left." So while we admire the brilliance of individual contributors, we also realize our modern world has become too complex to solve every challenge alone. Early in my career, I learned that you can achieve very little by yourself. Today, the most complex problems are solved by talented teams who have the ability to view challenges through many interesting interdisciplinary lenses and perspectives. Over the years, there's been a great debate about whether leadership is an art or a science, or perhaps a combination of both. Today, I'd like to suggest it's actually a systems engineering problem. As rapid innovations accelerate the complexity of every field, the old models of leadership are coming under scrutiny. Organizations, large and small, find that they must position themselves to respond to change. In the 1980s, we saw the emergence of the first major studies of complex networks and systems. Today, that has emerged into a new field of complexity leadership. This new approach is helping us understand how systems emerge and interact, and how leaders can learn from and adapt to dramatic change. In the past, many organizations have relied on a top-down structure with rigid hierarchy. And while this allowed leaders to clearly articulate an organization's value and vision and strategy, it can also lack flexibility and creativity in responding to complex challenges. Like any area of study, I believe the field of leadership is constantly evolving. In the 21st century, a rigid top-down structure has several drawbacks. Internal and external challenges are emerging more rapidly. Technologies are changing too quickly. Data is being generated constantly, and the pace of decision-making required is also growing at a phenomenal rate. While the challenges across every industry are real, they also present us with several opportunities. And that's why I believe systems engineers can play a vital role in reshaping the field of leadership. You understand the complex and changing nature of systems. You realize these systems are governed by feedback, and you know that failing to find root cause makes it more difficult to learn from our past actions or experiences. We need you to be a leader every day and to help others to help other leaders and executives understand complex systems and how they can prepare to respond to change with foresight and flexibility. So what do systems engineering leaders do? Let me share just a couple of the lessons I've learned, what I call leadership maxims. Leadership doesn't just happen. You have to make it a priority and commit to making the time and creating the space for it to happen. A leader brings solutions, not problems, to the table. If you're not part of the solution, you are the problem. Leaders can't be rigid. They must be open to receiving new information, and instead of becoming paralyzed by watching the door that's closing, leaders keep watching for the door that is about to open. Being the smartest person in the room does not make you a leader. Leaders anticipate change and harness it. We live in an age of relentless change. Remember, what you thought you knew yesterday may in fact be irrelevant today. And when you find yourself standing in quicksand, don't respond by flailing around. have a backup plan that will get you back to terra firma in a safe, stable, and sustainable way. You've got to ask good questions and listen carefully to the answers for what is said as well as what is not said. We need to be truthful and transparent to the greatest extent possible. Mentoring is an essential part of your role. Look for the teachable moments and provide feedback often. You've got to be willing to take measured risks in the interest of innovation and continuous improvements. And leaders recognize that not making a decision is a decision. Admiring the problem is not the same as working to resolve it. And finally, leaders leave things better than you found them. And if you're able to do this, you can have a dramatic impact on your industry, our government, and our global society. But here's the challenge. The responsibility for leadership can no longer be left to a small team at the top. We are all leaders now, leaders in our areas of expertise, leaders in our companies, and leaders in our communities. And we need you to lead our bright, talented systems engineers by contributing your knowledge and being willing to speak truth to power, by seeing problems from your unique perspective, by sharing your ideas and your expertise, and by providing us with new models of leadership that help improve our organizations, our society, and our world. The challenges for every industry are dynamic and different, but they call on the common qualities inherent in every great systems engineer. The courage to accept a challenge, the determination to discover answers, and the skill to solve problems in ways that better our world. So in conclusion, with every generation and every advancement, humans have gained greater knowledge about how to bring about a better world. It's easy to look back and find inspiration in visionaries like Leonardo da Vinci. But the greatest creativity and discovery is not limited to the past. Today, systems engineers just like you are advancing knowledge in ways that Leonardo da Vinci could never have imagined. People like you have access to more knowledge, more tools, and more technologies than at any other time in human history. You're using your intellect and your imagination to shape and disrupt virtually every industry. You're finding solutions to problems that were once considered unsolvable. You're helping us to do things that were once considered impossible. You're looking through the lens of multiple disciplines, providing us with new perspectives to solve our most complex challenges. In this way, you are carrying on the spirit of great geniuses like Leonardo da Vinci. In hundreds of years, we may be talking about innovations that you've imagined, inventions that you've created, and new worlds that you've helped us discover. In that way, you're far more than systems engineers. You're the visionaries expanding the reach of your chosen fields. You're the creators bringing new ideas to life. You're the pioneers pushing the boundaries of knowledge far beyond where they've been before. With the increasing complexity of challenges around the world, we need you more than ever. We need your insight and your imagination. We need your ideas and your ingenuity. We need you to focus your expertise and experience on making better technologies that make our world a better place. You are the leading innovators of your era. You are the geniuses of our generation. You are the visionaries of the most creative age in human history. Thank you for playing such a vital role at such an important time. Thank you for the extraordinary work that you do, and thank you for making me proud to call myself a systems engineer. Have a great conference, and hopefully you'll get to enjoy a little bit of Florida as well. Thank you.